Well, hi there, friends. Today, we are launching a new series, and I don't have a great name for it, so I'm calling it Non-YouTube Related Books That YouTube Creators Should Read. It's not catchy. It's clear, though. I don't know. It needs help. Let me know in the comments if you've got any better ideas. And we are kicking off the series with Ali Abdaal's new book, Feel Good Productivity. And to be completely fair, yes, I know Ali Abdaal is a YouTuber, so it does fit in the series because the book's not about YouTube, all right? Calm down. I don't know why I got so aggressive there. I'm sorry. And I love that the approach that this book takes to the idea of burnout. And I just want to reference here in chapter 9 how Ali frames burnout. He calls it the greatest obstacle for true productivity. Because you could download all the apps, you can master productivity in the traditional sense, you can do all the things, but if it's not sustainable, it doesn't matter. It just seemed fitting that we are in this time period on YouTube where it seems like everybody's quitting, and it's kind of all around the same reasonings. It's all related to burnout.
I'm so tired.
And to be honest, I'm not really a person who's like really into like the productivity advice sphere, and I'll tell you why I feel like this book is actually different. But before I do that, if you don't mind just reading that like button for the YouTube algorithm, it just helps get this video out to more friends just like you. And more friends is not a bad thing. That's what I always say. And the reason I'm so critical of productivity advice, and maybe this isn't fair, but if you've ever spent any time like researching how to make money online, you've come across like the hustle culture, and I definitely found myself deep in that hustle culture for some time. But like the productivity advice from the hustle culture is work harder, stay up later at night, sacrifice relationships so you can succeed. And it's just gross. Like, that's not the life I want to live, even if it comes with millions of dollars, which it probably doesn't. Like, you're probably making more selling the course on how to be successful. Anyway, that's a rabbit hole. And that's hustle culture, and that's not necessarily productivity advice. But even for productivity advice, I always ask myself, like, do you make more money talking about being productive, but like, you're human, so you're probably not that productive. So I don't know. I'm not a person who consumes it, but I did hear about this book. Ali Abdaal wrote this book, and he is a productivity YouTuber, somebody I am fully aware of, but I just don't watch a whole lot because of the stuff that I mentioned. But I was very intrigued by the title, Feel Good Productivity. I don't know, it just the title alone felt different, so I was intrigued. So let's talk about what Feel Productivity is. So to best understand this, let's go to the beginning of the book and see the candle problem. So picture yourself with these three objects, and you got to stick the candle to the cork board on the wall. So when it's lit, the candle wax does not drop on the floor. Are you able to see the solution here? Carl Dunker used this study in 1945, but in the late 1970s, scientists actually used this to study how mood affects people's creativity. But this study involves splitting people up into two different groups. And they were asked to solve this problem, but the difference is only one group got candy beforehand. So therefore, their mood was a little bit boosted, and they went into solving this problem a little bit happier. And what's bonkers is it actually worked. Like the group who got candy had a much higher rate of solving the candle problem. So basically the solution to the problem is you use the box that the tacks are in, you use the tacks to put the box up, and then you put the candle in the box, so then the wax doesn't fall on the floor. So what this tells us is like feeling good doesn't just end there. When you feel good, you're actually more productive. You think more creatively, you get more done, and you're happier doing it. So feel good productivity isn't about like, hey, you need to manufacture this motivation to stay up really late and get a crap ton of stuff done. It's we're going to focus on your well-being first, and then you're going to use that well-being to drive your motivation. And this is the type of motivation, productivity advice that I've actually been waiting for. So I just wanted to share some of the top 6 or 7 key ideas that I found with you. And by the way, if you are interested in getting this book, you can check it out in the link drawer down below. All right, first things first, can you relate to this? You finished your video, you're about to upload it, and you feel so good about it. You're like, this is going to change the trajectory of my channel. Like, this is one of my best videos ever. You end up uploading it, and it ends up being like a 10 out of 10. The video completely bombed, and now you're back to the drawing board, and you're like, well, and all of a sudden you're just like not confident in the video at all. Like your mood about that video completely changed, and it was all due to external factors. And it's one thing if like your confidence is rocked about this video, but there's a ripple effect because now you're not really confident about making the next video. and it's harder to get up the gumption to actually hit record anymore because you're like, well, I clearly don't know what I'm doing. Confidence as a creator, it's a fickle thing, you know? And that's why I was so intrigued about this study about confidence. So there's a group of several dozen female people who were not regular exercisers, and they all got together, and these scientists split them up into two different groups. And they basically told them that, well, you guys are the more fit group, and then you guys are the less fit group, based on the heart rate and all the other stuff that we were testing. So we'll say that group A was the more fit group, and group B was the not so fit group. But here's the thing. That was all a bunch of hooey. They split them up completely random, but that's just what they told them. So the crazy part is the real test was actually in a few days when they all came back and they were all asked to exercise again and then rate their experience with the session. And group A, the more quote-unquote fit group, actually enjoyed the experience way more than group B. But what's really cool is they even rated the experience as better, even when part of the experiment was pushing the participants even harder. So when times got tough, they still thought that it was more enjoyable, just because they thought they were in the more fit group. They were more confident. So what they found was when you are more confident in your abilities, you feel good and you end up doing that thing better. So that might beg the question, like, what about that 10 out of 10 example? Like, if you were really confident about that video, but then it didn't do well, where does that sit? Let's come back to that. So when I was reading this, I thought that's really cool, but the problem was I was like, okay, confidence equals good, but do you have to already be successful to be confident? Like, it's kind of a chicken or egg thing. Like, I want to be confident, but I feel like I need those wins in order to get that confidence. But what's cool is that this book actually talks about how you can manufacture confidence. So here are 4 things to try when you want to try to work up that level of confidence in you. So the book actually highlights the power of positive talk going into your ears, whether that be externally or internally, and the insane effect that can have on our confidence levels. And let me highlight that external versus internal thing, because a lot of us think that those voices have to be external, like they've got to come from friends, family, coworkers, but actually it's just as powerful when it comes from inside, because the things that you say are often the things that you believe. So the second thing you can do is what Ali Abdaal calls the switch. If you want to just tell yourself that you're not a confident person, okay, that's fine. But if you need to just flip on the confidence for a little bit, flip the switch, turn yourself into somebody who is confident. So picture what it would look like for you to be a confident person. Okay, that's in your mind. For just a moment, I'm going to be that person. Let's play the role. Flip the switch, become that person for just a moment in time, and then you can go back to being not confident. The next trick is called vicarious mastery experience. I had to read that because there's no way I'm remembering that. And I won't go into all the scientific studies that he went into in this book, but basically it was, if you see other people doing hard things and they are successful in it, you actually feel like, oh, I can do that too. And there's studies to back up that is actually proven. And so that explains why, like, you might be listening to a podcast of somebody who's really been successful in your niche, or just somebody on YouTube, and it lights this fire under you, like, oh, I'm going to achieve that thing just like he did, or just like she did. And then there's also inactive mastery experiences. Again, had to read that because these are some big words. Sorry. And essentially, this is just a fancy way of saying the more we do something, the more we become confident by doing a thing more. The more we level up the skills, and then the more our confidence grows. Hey, by the way, if you're still here and you still have not checked out that like button, what are we waiting for? So I love the idea that our confidence is not dependent on our success or our failure, which is why I want to highlight this next point, which really reworks how we see failure to begin with. So for this point, let's talk about that 10 of 10 video that we were just referring to. And in this book, Ali actually references another YouTuber, Mark Rober, and something he calls the Super Mario effect. Let's watch a brief clip on him explaining the Super Mario effect.
About a year ago, I asked my YouTube followers to play a simple computer programming puzzle that I made with a buddy, because I said I wanted to prove that anyone from any background could learn to code. What they didn't know is that we actually randomly served up 2 slightly different versions of the puzzle. In one version, if you hit run and you weren't successful, you didn't lose any of your starting 200 points. We showed you this message. However, in the other version, if you hit run, and again, you weren't successful, we showed this slightly different message, stating that you lost 5 points from your starting 200 points. In one version, if you failed, we simply took away 5, no value in the real world, no one will ever see these completely meaningless fake internet points. For those who were penalized for failed attempts, their success rate was around 52%. For those who were not penalized, their success rate was 68%. That statistically significant delta of 16% was really surprising and almost seemed too hard to believe until we looked at another piece of data that we collected, which was attempts to solve before finding success. It's shown in orange right here. So those who didn't see failing in a negative light nearly had 2.5 times more attempts to solve the puzzle. As a result, naturally, they saw more success and therefore learned more.
So success, it doesn't come from how often you fail, but it more so comes from how you frame those failures, because you're going to fail. So say you tried out this new style of editing or a new video or whatever it is, and it is a flop. Your audience didn't like it. Even in the comments, people were like, yeah, don't do this anymore. You could definitely look at that as a failure. Like, that was a complete waste of time. But instead, let's look at it as a data point. You now understand your audience better. You understand what they like, what they connect with. That feels like a win. Nothing changed except the framing of what happened. So the next time you start feeling that feeling of failure, start looking at it as data points to be understood. And maybe you're able to learn something new. And this is all part of like lowering the stakes and not taking everything you do so seriously on this platform. And that doesn't necessarily mean that you don't care. It just means that you approach everything with sincerity instead of being so serious, which was another thing that he talked about in this book, sincerity over serious. But what does that actually mean? Well, for YouTube creators, it could mean that instead of like cutting every micro millisecond out of your video that might lose audience retention, cutting out every moment that might make you human because you're so afraid of a 0.5% audience retention drop. Instead of doing that, saying, hey, there are people on the other side of this, and I just want to connect with people. And if that means that I'm going to leave in my little mistakes or whatever, that's fine, because I'm trying to build a connection with my audience. That is approaching things with sincerity instead of being so serious. All right, next, I don't have to tell you that YouTube, it can be a lonely place, and especially when you're starting out. Like, you don't even have a team or anything, and a lot of people around you just don't understand YouTube, like in your personal space world. And that's why I strongly believe that this next thing applies to creators. There's a group of students, they were split up into 2 groups, and every student was given this quiz or riddle of some sort, and every student was also given a hint to that quiz or riddle, whatever it was. And I should also mention that every student was given the same hint, but they were told something different. One group of students was told that the hint came from a past participant in this study, and the other group was actually told that the hint came from like the facilitator or the instructor or whatever. And the findings were actually fascinating, because the group that got the hint from the other participant actually felt like they were working together. It felt like more of a together type project. Versus the other group who thought they got it from the instructor, it felt more like they were working in parallel with the other students. But the together group actually ended up working on the puzzle 48% longer. So the only difference between these 2 groups is one felt like they were working together and the other one didn't. And they worked on it 48% longer. So what does this mean for us as YouTube creators? It means if we do this thing alone, we will burn out. We will become uninterested much faster. It is just a scientific fact. So what do you do about that?
You basically want to remove every dull moment. You probably want to find the 10 most critical people you know, make them watch the video, and just roast it.
And I've personally taken this advice as well, and I have found some people. We've got a Discord thing going. Shout out to all my homies on Discord, because when you are working together on something, it will increase your productivity and lessen the chance for burnout. And the thing is, burnout does not just happen to people with stressful jobs. And it almost feels like if you are a YouTube creator that you're not allowed to feel burnout because you could have a much worse job. Like, this isn't that stressful. But burnout has nothing to do with how hard a job is or how stressful it is. It's all in how you feel. Burnout happens when things stop becoming meaningful, enjoyable, or manageable. And it happens when you're doing too much, or you're not resting properly, or you're doing things that are no longer meaningful to you. And this book goes into a whole lot more about just the idea of burnout and other ways that you can alleviate burnout. But I already feel like this video is getting long. I hope those key ideas were something that you could take away. Honestly, highly recommend this book, and this is probably one of the only productivity books that I would recommend, so get the link down in the description. And while you're here, I'm putting together a playlist of all the different books that I would recommend that YouTube creators read. You can check out that playlist somewhere over here. And we'll see you in the next video.